aged around 54 years, female. She is a housewife. She has diabetes mellitus for since 8 years and hypertensive. Duration of operation is not given, and she has glaucoma. And her chief complaint is burning pain, sensations, and numbness in feet. That is nothing but the microvascular complication of the diabetes. That is diabetes, painful sensory, small fiber neuropathy.
First time, right?
So,
Okay.
it may be due to long duration of diabetes or due to uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, and we have to exclude other causes of neuropathy like alcohol and smoking and drugs like antituberculous drugs and metformin, long duration of use of metformin. And coming back to her body weight is 65 kilograms and her BMI is 24.8 kilograms per meter square. That is, according to Asian and Indian recommendations, she comes under overweight. That this denotes she lacks exercise and that she has poor dietary habits. She is not maintaining the ideal body weight. And her blood sugars are fasting plasma glucose is 164 milligrams per deciliter and post breakfast glucose is 212 milligrams per deciliter. Post dinner glucose is 296 milligrams per deciliter. All blood sugars are extremely high. That denotes the uncontrolled blood sugar. And her HbA1c is also 9.3. It's totally out of control. And her this denotes uncontrolled diabetes. Her BP is 138/74 millimeters of mercury. According to ADA guidelines, a patient with diabetes should maintain a systolic blood pressure of 130 millimeters of mercury and 80 millimeters of diastolic blood pressure. So a little hike in the systolic blood pressure in this case. So her serum creatinine is 1.2 milligrams per deciliter, and this EGFR given is 68 ml per minute. It is wrong. According to two equations, usually we follow MDRD and CKD EPI modified 2009 equation. Her EGFR comes under according to one equation, her EGFR is 47 ml per minute per 1.73 square meter, and another equation 51 ml per minute per 1.73 meter square meter, and she comes under the stage of 3A DKD. There are 5 stages in the diabetic kidney disease. She comes under the 3A DKD. So BP control is
It is little bit high.
It is little bit high. It should be maintained because she already has a complication of glaucoma. To rule out, to prevent the development of the retinopathy, her blood sugar and blood pressure should be maintained well, and she is on treatment.
The
Current anti-diabetic drugs are, she is an insulin sensitizer metformin 1000 milligrams BID and DB4 Inpitor vildagliptin 50 mg BID and insulin secretagogue sulfonylurea glycoside extended release 60 mg once a day. Even with triple drug therapy, her blood sugars are out of control. The causes for her uncontrolled diabetes are lacks diet control because she takes high carbohydrate intake and she has limited housework and high HbA1c and triple OAD therapy which is inadequate, and she needs insulin therapy that can control both postprandial and fasting plasma glucose levels. Which insulins to choose when patients are uncontrolled on OADs? Here is a study with insulin naive patients with T2DM. We selected 296 patients, and in one arm, this study conducted for 26 weeks. In one arm, we selected basal insulin Iglar U100 along with existing OADs we selected 149 patients. In another arm, we selected 147 patients on insulin IDEC as OD once a day plus existing OADs. And there is similar fasting plasma glucose control with both IDEC once a day IDEC gas and once a day IGLAR U100, because the IDEC gas contains 70% of the insulin degludec. It maintains the fasting plasma glucose. So there is no much difference with IDEC gas and IDEC IGLAR U100 in controlling the fasting plasma glucose. But there is much difference in the control of postprandial glucose with IGLAR U100 and IDEC ASP, because 81% of the patients of Indian population had dinner as their major meal, which contains a lot of carbs. So which cannot be maintained with IGLAR U100. So the unaddressed postprandial glucose spikes after the major meal with basal insulin IGLAR U100 is around 57.42 milligrams per deciliter. This can be controlled by IDEC ASP and reduces the HbA1c in around 1.4% and compared to once a day IGLAR U100. Options for insulin initiation. Efficacy in nutshell: once a day insulin degludec aspart versus once a day IGLAR U100. So coming to the fasting plasma glucose, there is no difference in with the IDEC ASP and IGLAR U100. And coming to the postprandial glucose control, IDEC ASP scores over IGLAR U100, because IGLAR U100 cannot control the postprandial exertion. Coming to HbA1c, IDEC ASP scores over IGLAR U100 because it controls for both fasting plasma glucose and postprandial plasma glucose, and thereby it reduces the HbA1c by 1.4% after 26 weeks. So IDEC ASP offers total control and hence gives superior reduction in HbA1c level. So options for insulin initiation. So improved safety of once a day IDEC ASP versus OD IDEC U100. So as I said, there is lower risk of overall confirmed hypoglycemia of 27% with IDEC ASP and in 25% lower risk of nocturnal confirmed hypoglycemia with IDEC ASP. So in patients uncontrolled on OADs, insulin initiation must offer better efficacy without compromising on safety. So with IDEC ASP, 43% of these patients on trial attained HbA1c less than 7% without hypo, and only 25% of patients on IGLAR U100 attained HbA1c less than 7% without hypo. With IDEC ASP, overall 72% more patients achieve their targets without experiencing hypoglycemia than once a day IGLAR U100. So coming back to our case, Mrs. Vinita Pillai, she has diabetes and hypertension and with glaucoma, and she has diabetic sensory peripheral neuropathy and diabetic kidney disease. When there are two microvascular complications, we have to exclude other microvascular complications, that is diabetic retinopathy. And there is and we should screen for fasting lipid profile to rule out the dyslipidemias, and thyroid profile to rule out the thyroid abnormalities, hormonal abnormalities, and a basic ECG. Because many of the patients that with suffering from diabetes had silent myocardial infarctions which were diagnosed by taking ECG. because of autonomic neuropathy, they are not able to feel the pain. So ECG is a must for every patient. So by seeing the ECG and seeing the lipid profile, and we can guide the patient and to prevent the major cardiovascular events and prevent the cardiovascular mortality and morbidities, right? And we also advise ultrasound abdomen for to rule out the fatty liver, which is a novel problem now, like NAFLD, that is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is growing now. So coming to the SMBG profile of the patient Mrs. Vinita Pillai, before breakfast 162 milligrams per deciliter, after breakfast 212 milligrams per deciliter, before lunch 174 milligrams per deciliter, after lunch 202 milligrams per deciliter, before dinner 168 milligrams per deciliter, after dinner 296 milligrams per deciliter. The all readings are out of control. This shows the patient take more carbohydrate diet at dinner. So this chrononutrition is plays a major role in the emerging treatment of T2DM management. Chrononutrition is nothing but the timing of the patient when he eats. It specifies the coordinating food intake with body's daily rhythms. The timing of eating is just as important as what and how many times a person eats a day. When you eat is as important as what you eat. So meal timing has a major effect on the control of T2DM. So eating a carbohydrate-rich meal at night results in increased postprandial glycemia compared with an identical meal in the morning. The benefits of consuming meals early in the day should be encouraged in the diabetics. Eating low glycemic index foods in the morning improves glycemic response to a greater effect than at night. So the order of food presentation considerably influences the glycemic response. So we have to take a lot of high protein diet in place of high carbohydrate diet during dinner will reduce the postprandial glucose levels. So for example, when a person takes a rice based meal, the sequence of consuming meal pattern is like this. He has to consume the vegetables first, like leafy vegetables or vegetable salad or boiled vegetables, followed by, if he takes meat, followed by a meat or eggs, or if he is a vegetarian, he has to take pulses and nuts and seeds and dal, etc. And finally the carbohydrates. Lastly, the rice may be a long grain rice like basmati rice, which contains low glycemic index, brown rice, and not the sona masuri or basmati aloo, which contains high glycemic index. And we can replace the rice with the millets to decrease the postprandial excursion of the glucose. This has a great potential of reducing the postprandial glucose. So according to the survey, the US National Health and Nutritional Examination Survey, which was conducted in 2003 to 2014, the association of energy and macronutrient intake at dinner versus breakfast with disease-specific and all-cause mortality among people with diabetes, they concluded that higher intake of energy, total fat and protein from dinner than breakfast was associated with greater diabetes and cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality in people with diabetes. Just like a majority of Indians with PTDM, Mrs. Vinita Pillai also has her major meal as dinner, and the post-dinner glucose level are high. She needs an insulin that can offer total control both postprandial glucose and fasting plasma glucose. Initiating Ida gas, aiming for total control. So there are few key clinical considerations to initiate Ida gas. What should be the starting dose? At what time of the day should Ida gas should be administered? What does major meal mean? Which device to choose? How to inject Ida gas? How to adjust the dose of Ida gas? Starting dose and timing of administration is usually we start as a patient has dinner is a major meal. We start the Ida gas with 10 units once a day with major meal just before 5 to 10 minutes before the dinner, and followed by weekly titration based on the pre breakfast glucose levels. The major meal from the clinical point of view depends on the identification of the major meal and both the quantity and quality of carbohydrates consumed through food matter. So by looking this picture, you can easily identify which is the major meal. Here is the pizza is the major meal because it contains lot of carbs compared to chicken meal B, chicken biryani, and meal C, fish curry. So the major meal from clinical point of view is easy to how to identify a major meal. Look at your plate. The largest meal is the meal that usually contains largest amount of bread, rice, potatoes, sweets, and lot of carbs. So major meal can also be best assessed through self-monitoring of blood glucose. So which device to choose? Ida gas is available in two best delivery devices. As you know, one is the FlexStage use and throw, and one is the NovoPen 4. It is a permanent pen. Coming to the FlexStage Ryzodec, which is a pre-filled insulin pen with no push button extension. It has a unique injection mechanism with very low dose force. We can hear a click at the end of the dose, and there is accurate and consistent dosing. And coming to NovoPen 4, it is a lifelong pen. It can deliver the accurate dose for more than 5 years, and there is low dose needed to force to inject, and easy dose adjustment, and easy to read the dose scale. And Ida gas injection is simple and easy to educate the patient how to dial and how to inject. There is a dial selector. You can select the number of units to inject, and you can rotate the dose selector up and down. You can correct the dose which you want. Example, if you want to inject 10 units, you can dial up to 10 units and you can inject the dose. And how to inject? Inject the dose by pressing the dose button all the way until 0 lines with the pointer. Keep the dose button fully depressed. Let the needle remain under the skin for at least 6 seconds. But in our clinical practice, we always recommend to stay for at least 30 seconds after injection. So select injection site and selection and rotation. It is very important to prevent the lipodystrophies. So here is the rotation, skin rotation, site rotation techniques are given in the pictures, and within the injection sites are all neatly given in these two pictures. So patient education on adjusting the dose of Ida gas. It depends on the fasting once a day Ida gas dose is titrated based on the fasting plasma glucose. If it is BID, it is titrated based on the pre-meal glucose values. If it is less than 80 milligrams per deciliter, there is a reduction. You have to reduce the dose by 2 units. If it is 80 to 130 milligrams per deciliter, there is no need of dose adjustment. If it is between 131 to 160 milligrams per deciliter, we have to increment by 2 units. If it is between 161 to 180 milligrams per deciliter, we have to increment by 4 units. If it is more than 180 milligrams per deciliter, we have to increase by 6 units. So overall progress in coming back to the case, insulin initiation with ida gas before the dinner with along with the existing OADs. Here the metformin and vildagliptin was continued, and glyclazide was discontinued in this case. And we start with the ida gas 10 units with the dinner and titrate it to 20 units over a period of 12 weeks based on the fasting plasma glucose levels. At the end of 12 weeks, the fasting plasma glucose is 114 milligrams per deciliter, post breakfast is 148 milligrams per deciliter, post dinner is 156 milligrams per deciliter, and HbA1c is decreased from 9.3 to 7.2 percent. It is almost normal, near normal. So summary: the patient had inadequate glycemic control despite being on multiple OADs. Insulin initiation was required for better control and to reduce the risk of complications. Diet history along with assessment of both fasting plasma glucose and postprandial plasma glucose is important. Total control with ida gas at insulin initiation helped achieve the desired results. Thank you.
Wonderful.